Hey everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Ashley. If you are new here, we are doing our weekly recap of our previous week for the Pantry Challenge, and then we're going to do some planning, but there's also a few more things going on in today's video. We are of course going to talk about how this past week went, which was week 3, and we'll make a plan for our upcoming week of dinners for week 4, but we also worked on some canning this week. I decided not to make a separate video for it. It was just kind of a crazy week, and so I thought we'll just squeeze it in to the recap video. And so we make broth, can the broth. I also picked up a order from a local grower of some food, so we'll check out that. It's going to be a fresh produce haul, a small one. And then at the end, if you would be willing to sit with me for a little longer, I kind of want to talk about where my goals are at with the Pantry Challenge, as well as some other things that this Pantry Challenge has sort of initiated me to be thinking about. And it's not necessarily pantry related, but it's just got me in a different mindset. So if you want to stick around for the end of the video, we'll talk about that then. But let's get on to the week 3 recap. So for day 1 of a week 3, I completely ignored the entire plan because somebody commented on one of the videos and threw out a few meal ideas, and they all sounded so good to me. And so I scratched what was for dinner, and we made a tuna noodle casserole. Now, when I made this, I was just like over the moon because we were able to utilize so much stuff that was already in our house. Like literally everything came either from the pantry or the freezer, and it's stuff that I've been wanting to use up, like the peas. So the main ingredients we used was tuna, noodles, frozen peas, and cream of mushroom soup. I have a cream of mushroom soup. I don't usually make that on my own, but I buy a version of the Campbell's that I feel okay about, and so that's what I usually do. But I even topped it with some breadcrumbs that we had downstairs in our basement that was completely unopened and untouched, so that was great to dig into those as well. And everybody gobbled it up, so that was really great. So for day 2, I made coconut curry. Now, if you remember from last week, I was planning one leftover day, and if we needed more than one leftover day, I was going to skip the stir fry because we already had all of that pre-done in our freezer. But what I decided to do, because this was the day that I did a bunch of other kitchen projects, I decided to use the stir-fry vegetable mixture from the freezer in the curry. So it actually ended up working out beautifully. Threw some chicken in there, used some rice, and it was a fantastic meal. Today we are making a big batch of broth. This is not going to be a specific type of broth. It's going to be an everything broth. We've got a turkey carcass, we've got beef bones, and we've got a lot of different veggies we're going to put in it. We're going to use my largest stock pot, and then we are going to pressure can the broth. So in order to get a really good deep flavor with our broth, we're going to use the oven for a few things. The first thing I'm going to do is grab one of our beef bone packages and put it in one of the cast iron pans I've got here and roast it. So I have these bones in this pan. It's not a big pan. I might pull them apart as they thaw a little bit so they have a little bit more exposure to the hot air. But other than that, we're just going to roast them for a little while. Now, when I make homemade broth, well, when I can anything, I usually use as high quality water as I can. Okay, so I just put 3 gallons in, and as you can see, it is pretty high up here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some of our other things put in. I'm determined to use that 4th gallon, but one of my big pet peeves is overcrowding a pot. So I'm gonna just leave it at 3 gallons, get our bones in there, and probably get that started. Maybe I'll add the 4th gallon later. This is a turkey carcass that we cooked for Thanksgiving time. So we're just gonna get that put in as well. Wow, yeah, we would have overflowed had I put that one in. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn my burner on high. I'm going to put in a little bit of apple cider vinegar that helps to pull out collagen from bones. If I can get it open. That's the only thing I'm going to put in the water right now. When you're making broth, and you're mixing meat and veggies, meat takes a lot longer to break down. The veggies do not take near as long to break down. So if you're making just a meat broth, those can go a lot longer, low and slow. When you have vegetables involved, they really tend to disintegrate pretty quickly after a couple of hours. So what I'm gonna do is let this go. I'm gonna put the beef bones from the oven in. When they're done, I'm guessing that will be in maybe around an hour or so. This is gonna take a little bit to heat up though, so I'm not too concerned about waiting on what's in there. I'm gonna let these bones just simmer for, I don't know, probably at least 6 hours. And then later today, put in our vegetables. And I've got some frozen veggies, and I also have some fresh ones. I've got some garlic that I need to use up. I'm put a bunch of garlic in there. I usually like to use a scrappy veggie mixture. So scraps from like onion peels, celery tops, and things like that. I usually like to use that for the vegetable instead of having to buy all new fresh veggies for the broth. However, because I'm making such a big batch, I do actually have some fresh. I have a little bit of celery, and then I have this onion. But the reason why I bought this is because I want to roast it in the oven as well. So the onion skins and sort of extra peels I have in the freezer will just go straight in frozen. But this one we're gonna cut up, put on this pan, and let them sort of roast and caramelize in the oven and put them in here. It's just gonna get a really nice deep flavor. Because I'm making such a big batch of broth and I'm utilizing a lot of these high quality ingredients that I've kept around specifically for broth, I really wanna go the extra steps to make it as good as I can. Okay, we took the onions out because they are looking pretty good, nice and soft. And now for the bones in here, we're just gonna kind of break them up a little bit. Here we go. Let them keep going. Something that I did today to be a little bit resourceful is I had some chicken to cook up for dinner. And so I just sort of put it in this little colander on the top, and I boiled it in this broth water that we're cooking today. And not only did it get the chicken cooking, but it also flavored the broth some more. But I wanted to wait until I was done with that to get the vegetables in. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna put our vegetables in. We actually had tacos for Tuesday. I was just thinking that was going to be super quick and easy. Tuesday nights tend to be really busy for us from about 4 o'clock through 7:30, which is the high time for dinner. And so I decided to do tacos because they're quick and easy, and they just kind of, people could eat them as they came in and out of activity. So we did that. We used some of our home canned beef. I had several different tortillas that I needed to use up, 3 different bags. Home canned salsa, we had some lettuce, so it was pretty simple, but it accomplished a lot of our pantry challenge goals, and it worked really well for us that night. So for day 4, we made chili and cornbread. Today we're on day 4 of week 3, and I've got a couple things I'm doing right now. I'm gonna get some dinner made, and then I'm also going to open up a box of food that I got. So I thought we could do that together. This is a box from a local CSA. They grow a lot of things that can be stored well into the winter, if not into the spring. And they sell it at local grocery stores, but they also sort of have like an a la carte setup so that people can just put in orders and go to pickup sites. I think the one that I go to, they drop things off every other week. So every other Wednesday. And you can just order from what they've got. And they've got all kinds of things like squash, potatoes. So let's see what we got today. And I actually put this order in almost 2 full weeks ago. And I was thinking that it would come weekly because in the fall they do make drops every week. All right, so we got some red potatoes. I believe these are 6-pound bags. I was also wanting some gold potatoes. These are yellow onions, 5 pounds. 2 pounds of beets, so just a small amount. And then 5 pounds of carrots. This is going to be a really nice addition to our pantry challenge food. All of these things have been really well preserved since they were harvested. So I'm actually going to keep an onion out because I'm going to use it for dinner. We're going to make some chili and cornbread. I've made my broth. We're going to be doing some canning of that. I'll get to that tomorrow. But I'm going to go ahead and clear my counter, put this stuff away, and we'll get making the chili and cornbread. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is get my meat browning. Then we will cut up an onion. I'm actually going to let this cook in the Instant Pot because the beef gets so nice and tender. So we're going to get that going, this getting on the stove. And then while that's cooking, we'll get all the other ingredients put in the Instant Pot. I added a little bit of broth. It was actually the last jar of broth we had from previous broth that I had in my freezer. And this is the broth that we made that we're going to be canning up tomorrow. Look at how jello-like this is. That is how much of the collagen we were able to get out of those beef bones and those turkey bones. This is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm not even going to pour it. I'm going to spoon it into our chili pot here. Now when this goes into the pressure cooker and heats up, it just dissolves and becomes purely liquid. So I'm not concerned about it being gloopy like this at all. It just melts away and softens up. So that should be plenty. We've got all of our spices and seasonings in here. I actually really love this taco seasoning that I used for tacos this week too. I use it in my chili because it's got all of our chili ingredients. It's got cumin, chili powder, and all of that. It's the Frontier taco seasoning, and it's salt free. It's so delicious. I absolutely love it in our chili. So I just sort of use it as a chili spice, even though technically it's a taco seasoning. I know you can saute in here, and I usually do that. I just thought I would do this on the stove so that I can get this ready in the meantime. I also really like adding bell peppers to chili, but I didn't have any, so we're just making do with what we've got. What I really want to know from you is if you are in camp bean chili or not. Growing up, I always had beans. We always had beans in our chili, but I highly prefer chili with no beans. So, which one do you prefer? I thought I had enough cornmeal, but I don't. So I'm going to actually use some of this organic yellow corn masa that I originally got to make some corn tortillas, but I still have some. So I'm going to make the cornbread with this instead. From what I understand, it's perfectly fine to do. So aside of that, I'm just going to get this mixed up. It's a pretty basic cornbread recipe. So let's get mixing. Well, we are going to go ahead and get this broth canned up. We made it 2 days ago. Yesterday we pulled out some of it for the chili like I showed you. And so now we're gonna go ahead and can it up. We've got our big kettle that we made the broth in, ready to go to warm it up so it goes in the canner hot. So we've got vinegar in the canner already that is recommended to add, and it just kind of helps keep the jars in good condition so that when it goes through the canning process, they don't kind of turn, I think they give it sort of like a white film. So anyway, putting vinegar in the water helps with that. And then we got the 2-3 quarts, whatever it is, put in the bottom. So I got my gauge screwed on here. And so the canner is ready to go. One of the things that I'm going to try doing today is double stacking in my canner. I'm actually going to can all of this broth in pints. Normally I can in quarts, and then I only use a pint if, I only can in a pint if I don't have enough broth to fill another quart jar. But today I'm going to do all pints. I have several reasons for that, but that's what we're going to do. And this will give me a chance to test double stacking in the pressure canner. I know a lot of people buy extra racks to be able to create a nice flat surface, but I checked all the jars that I'm using today and they are all the exact same height. I'm using regular mouth pints. If I contemplated using wide mouth for the bottom layer just to give it more surface area for the top jars to rest on, but we're going to go regular mouth pints, both layers, just stacked right on top of each other. I did double check with the manual for my pressure canner, and they said it's perfectly acceptable to stack directly on the jars themselves. So that's what we're gonna do. So I don't always take the fat off the broth before I can it. Today I am, and the reason for that is that there is a little bit of like just like a scumminess, and I think that comes large in part from turkey. I find that when I make turkey broth, that sometimes it's a little, the fat layer is just a little different than when I make it other ways. So when it comes to double stacking in the canners, if you double stack in your canners, do you use a rack or do you just go straight on top of your jars? Let me know. We're gonna try this and see how it works. So I know I showed yesterday, but just look at how much collagen came out of that broth. That is just amazing. Okay, so we are getting started on the lentil soup. In the pot, I've got my red lentils and green lentils. I decided to just use those 2 different kinds, in addition to some bay leaves, garlic, onion, and some rosemary powder. I thought that sounded like a nice combination to get this started with. And I have to be completely honest, I don't have my recipe that I used to use for this, so I kind of looked at a few different recipes, and I'm just gonna wing it. A lentil loaf is basically cooked lentils, and you want to somehow smash them, whether it's with a potato masher or a food processor, something that can sort of mash up maybe like 60 to 80, somewhere around there, % of the lentils. You want to leave some whole or, you know, bigger chunks and things like that. But other than that, it's really what you want, the flavors that you want, the vegetables that you want. So I'll probably do some sauteing. And we'll get into that in just a minute, of some more onions and carrots. Carrots are really good in lentil loaf. I have some beets that I just bought, but I don't think that I'm going to get into beets tonight. So we'll probably just do some onions, celery, carrots, and then some nice seasonings, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, what I did with the carrots is I sliced them first so that I would have finer shreds, which I think worked really well. There's some bigger ones in there, but for the most part, it's a fine shred. I put in the onions and celery that I sauteed in first, and then I put in probably like 80 or 90% of the lentils, and I'm just gonna pulse this, but I did try to make sure that all of the onions and garlic that I had in the boiling water got in here, and then I removed the bay leaves. So
We're gonna go ahead and get this mixed up and assemble the rest of the lentil loaf and get in the oven to bake. I've got the oven at 350 and it'll go for probably about 45 minutes.
Lentil loaf is nice and done. It's nice and dry on top. So I just made a little sort of topping with some more tomato paste and just a few other spices and seasonings. A little Worcestershire sauce. I'm gonna get that on and broil it for maybe just, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll eat. Day 6, we had breakfast for dinner. So this was Friday, and normally we've been getting our new egg delivery on Thursday. But because we had a ton of snow on Thursday, she told me that she would be here Friday instead. So we had planned breakfast for dinner Thursday, but shifted it. So on Friday, we had eggs in addition to sort of like a hash. And I put in pork sausage, potatoes, onions, and peppers into the hash, and then had it with eggs, and it was absolutely delicious. And then tonight for dinner, because today's Saturday, we're going to have split pea and ham soup. So we actually didn't have any leftovers for dinner this week. We ended up eating all of our meals for lunches, and that is how kind of the week went. Okay, I have been using this box that we got with our CSA pickup because it is such a strong, sturdy box. And so I've been using it as much as I can. So this week, we just have a smidgen of granola left. So I'm going to be making some more. So I brought up some walnuts for that because we are almost out of walnuts up here. So I'll make that for breakfast. Everything else doesn't need to be made at this point. And then lunches, we'll continue to do leftovers. Because we had no leftovers last week, I'm thinking that we have some capacity for repeating some of the meals that we did this past week. I think it was a really successful week in terms of like everybody in the house really enjoying the meals. And if you have a family where there's a lot of different people, that is kind of a nice thing. So I decided that we would repeat some of the meals. So let's take a look at what we got from the basement. So I'm going to do chili another night. So I got some of the broth that we made this week, tomato sauce, canned tomatoes, and then a pound of beef to go with that. A different night, I'm gonna make meatloaf. We had lentil loaf this week, and I was thinking meatloaf would be nice too. The only thing is, I'm mildly considering doing like a hamburger of some kind, not necessarily like a bun and hamburger type situation, but some kind of hamburger. I mean, at least half the people in our house don't even eat buns when we have burgers. They just eat the patties. So maybe something with that, but as long as we're doing that, I figure why not make meatloaf. So we'll see how it turns out. We'll see what we come up with that. We'll see what we come up with for that. But I brought up 2 pounds of meat for that dinner. So we've got chili, meat loaf. We're gonna do curry again. That was fantastic. So I found our last package of chicken, and I'm thinking this week I might actually do some canning of chicken. I'm gonna have to get chicken for that, but we are completely out of canned chicken. And there's a couple things that happened this week meal-wise where I'm like, if we had some canned chicken, that'd be perfect to throw in there. So it's already been on my list, and then this week sort of reaffirmed that I really need to get some canned chicken going. So we'll do curry, and I'm just gonna have to chop up our veggies because I don't have that in the freezer. Although I do have a stir-fry mix, so maybe I'll use some of that and then throw in some more fresh veggies of the kind that we like. Because sometimes those pre-packaged stir-fry mixes, you know, they just have a certain ratio of whatever they decide to throw in. But I know we have like mushrooms, bell peppers, carrots, onions, things like that. So we'll just kind of make it a little bit bigger. Another night I want to do, we've got ham. I've got a ham in here. And we've been kind of trying to go through like some of these bigger things. We also have a turkey in the basement. So I'm thinking how I can use that in the next, few weeks as well. But we've got a ham in here, and I'm going to use that probably just one meal. I'm going to make some ham potato leek soup. Have these leeks left over from Thanksgiving. We have those beautiful fresh potatoes from this week that we picked up. And I was thinking that I would throw in ham into that soup. So I'm not going to take the ham. Well, the ham is huge. It's a big ham. So that's what we'll do for the soup. I also brought up some kale because I'm going to throw this in. I need to get more beef. I forgot I'm also going to make meatballs one week. There's going to be a lot of ground beef eaten this week, but we have a ton. So that's okay. But I'm going to throw kale in the meatballs. I like to do that because it works beautifully and it really ups the nutrition. And then the last thing I grabbed was a quart of cinnamon applesauce. We have not been snacking on that, and so that can kind of be like a dessert / treat this week. So that's kind of it. We have fruit a lot after dinner too. But I was thinking that we should bring one of these up so that we get it eaten. And then also if I do any baking this week, muffins, I don't have anything planned, but you can also throw this in any kind of baked good. So we'll see. We'll see if that happens. So that's it for the week. I need to grab, I'll probably do 2 pounds for the meatballs because then leftovers, or we can freeze those. So we'll have 5 pounds of beef out this week, this ham, which we won't use very much of, and then the chicken. So that's a lot of good protein that we're getting through. I know I made broth this week, but I've already planned to make another batch because we just go through so much. And once we start using it, it just disappears. So I thought as long as I've just made it and I'm kind of like in that broth zone, I'll make another batch. One of the things I noticed when I was in my freezer is I'm getting down to some other stuff that I haven't seen in a while. We've got lots of bags of frozen tomatoes still, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do salsa or tomato sauce with that, but I'm going to can those tomatoes. I'm thinking I'm still a couple weeks out from that project and still trying to figure out which way I want to go. We use a lot of salsa, but we also use a lot of tomato sauce. So I don't know. Maybe I'll do some of each and I won't have to decide. The other thing is I put an Azure order in this week, and normally it comes the very next week, but it's a long wait time. So when I pick it up, it actually won't be until 9 days from now. So even though I put it in this past Wednesday, normally it's that following Wednesday, it's almost 2 weeks now until the next order comes in. So that won't be in next week's video even, it'll be in the one after. But I'll kind of do like a little haul with the Azure order, similar to how I did the veggie one today. So if you've hung on this long, I appreciate you being here. And one of the things that this pantry challenge has really gotten me thinking of, and it's not necessarily because of the pantry challenge itself. I think that it's not necessarily the time of year. A lot of times the first of the year, the first month of the year is really highly associated with resolutions and things like that. And I've never really been a New Year's resolution kind of person. Simply because I think that you have a whole year to pick up any kind of habit, and you don't need to wait for a certain time of year to make that happen. And if we did wait for a certain time of year for that to happen, we have so many missed opportunities. So I have been thinking a lot, and I think that it has more to do with just things that I'm thinking about that are coming up this year for our family, things that I know will be coming up, likely happening, and just other goals that I've sort of had for myself over the last couple of years that I've been focused on at times, but been more distracted recently from. So to bring that back to the pantry challenge and the food aspect of things, I'm trying to be really mindful, and I think that it's really great timing that I am so heavily focused right now on our food. I usually am very focused on food, but sometimes it's not in the right ways, and I do things more out of motion than intention, and I'm not like that in general. I'm much more the kind of person who lives with intention and makes choices based on intentions that I have. So when I find myself slipping out of that, I'm off balance, and my fitness in that area isn't quite as good. Let me know if this at all resonates with you, or if this is just something that I'm completely on my own with. I think part of creating a fitness in this part of my life is sitting down and making a meal plan, because it gives you a specific time of day where you can sit down and plan out for the week what you want to be eating. And that just works so much better than having no plan at all on a daily basis, because that is where I get into trouble and it creates a trickle effect for our entire family. I guess in my mind, I had a lot more constructed thoughts, and as I'm speaking them out loud, I'm finding that I hope it doesn't seem too random and fragmented. But I'm really hoping that there would be something that I can help you with in this aspect of your life to create some fitness. So if any of this interests you in the least, and you want to try to explore going into it more, send an email to citysteadkitchen@gmail.com and just type in the subject food goals. You don't have to type anything else, and let's start a bigger conversation about this. A big part of what I'm hoping to do, at least initially, is to get feedback from you on what would benefit you the most. So I'll send out polls and requests to try to get an idea of what people are looking for, and then we can kind of take it from there. Let's just leave it at that, because I can't seem to get my thoughts quite straightened out right now. So let's just leave it at that. And if you want to join me through the email, I'll send out not only polls looking for what people are looking for, but then send it back out in newsletter form, basically, and develop an interactive element as well. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.